that should be a little bit more cozy, I think. Right here in this room, now. I might just start again, just so then, I don't know, if you want to clip this or whatever, it can be clipped. So, nominalism, realism, and conceptualism. These are terms used to designate the theories that have been proposed as solutions of one of the most important questions in philosophy, often referred to as the problem of universals, which, while it was a favorite subject for discussion in ancient times, and especially in the Middle Ages, is still prominent in modern and contemporary philosophy. We propose to discuss in this article the nature of the problem and the suggested solutions, the principal historic forms of nominalism, realism, and conceptualism, and the claims of moderate realism. I will explain in baby words. Hold on, I just gotta go through it first, okay? Just gonna take it step by step. Gonna show you the whole thing and I'll go through it step by step. Like, this is only the introduction. The problem and the suggested solutions. The problem of universals is a problem that corresponds of our intellectual concepts to things existing outside our intellect, whereas external objects are determinate, individual, formally exclusive of all multiplicity. Our concepts or mental representations offer us realities independent of all particular determination. They are abstract and universal. The question, therefore, is to discover to what extent the concepts of the mind correspond to the things that they represent. How the flower we conceive represents a flower existing in nature. In a word, whether our ideas are faithful and have objective reality. 4 solutions to the problem have been offered. It is necessary to describe them carefully, as writers do not always use the terms in the same sense. So what they're essentially talking about there is that one of the big issues that they had during, like I said, in ancient times, in the Middle Ages, is whether or not our thoughts do have an objective base in reality. So whether or not there is objective truth, whether there's, like, whether things do really exist, pretty much. So I guess, like, for example, let's just say that's in your mind, you think of what a mug is, yeah? So let's just have a look at the properties of a mug. It's ceramic, it's round, it has a little handle on it, it might have a color on it, but the problem might be is that that mug in your mind might not be the same mug as what it might be in reality. So that's where the issue arises. That's where, like, this whole thing like was discussed to begin with. And so there has been, like, a bunch of different solutions which I've put out over the years about this sort of stuff, which I'll go through right now. So, exaggerated realism. Exaggerated realism holds that there are universal concepts in the mind and universal things in nature. There is, therefore, a strict parallelism between the being in nature and the being in thought, since the external object is clothed with the same character of universality that we discover in the concept. This is a simple solution, but one that runs counter to dictates of common sense. Nominalism. This is the one that we've got to be focusing on. Exaggerated realism invents a world of reality corresponding exactly to the attributes of the world of thought. So basically, exaggerated realism is that it's basically the way reality is, it's the exact same thing in your mind. So I guess one way to think of it that way would be kind of to basically have this imaginary thing and actually thinking that it is actually real, that it does actually exist, when that's not really the case, which is why it is called exaggerated realism. So, nominalism, on the contrary, models the concept on the external object, which it holds to be individual and particular. Nominalism, consequently, denies the existence of abstract and universal concepts, and refuses to admit that the intellect has the power of engendering. Engendering? Never heard that word before. Engendering them. What are called general ideas are only names, more verbal designations, serving as labels for collection of things or series of particular events. Hence the term nominalism. Neither exaggerated realism nor nominalism finds any difficulty in establishing a correspondence between the thing in thought and the thing existing in nature, since in different ways they both postulate perfect harmony between the two. The real difficulty appears when we assign different attributes to things in nature and to the thing in thought. If we hold that the one is individual and the other universal, an antimony then arises between the world of reality and the world as represented in the mind, and we are led to inquire how the general notion of flower conceived by the mind is applicable to the particular and determinate flowers in nature. So basically, in baby words for that one, is that basically our thoughts, or the mental scape of what we see, is not real, it's not objective, there's just no basis to it. So essentially, it will be, I'll get another way of explaining it, but, because yeah, I'm not really good with words, as you guys might know. It makes sense to me, probably because, like, I don't know, I'm just a fucking nerd, I guess, but, I'm just not very good at explaining this sort of stuff. The funny thing is, too, Martin Luther, and I think Calvin, was a nominalist too, which are something to think about. Here, this one should be a little bit better. Nominalism is a theory that universal abstract ideas such as truth and goodness do not exist because they are not founded upon objective reality. It holds that the words we use for such concepts are merely convenient labels, and that reality cannot be perceived by every human mind through the use of such labels. There are no universals. Complex as it may seem, nominalism has implications for religious faith. If there are no universals, then we cannot really know God, nor can we know about the nature or grace or sin in our lives. We cannot know where we stand with God, as God himself acts arbitrarily. His acts lack an objective nature and do not correspond to human reason. We therefore cannot reliably use reasonable logic to discern good from evil, justice from injustice, and therefore we cannot freely and reliably choose what is good. Martin Luther and John Calvin were heavily influenced by nominalism and its leading proponent, the 14th century Franciscan scholar William of Ockham. The different degrees, and in opposition to 15 centuries of Catholic thought, they limited to the utility of reason in discerning truths of faith and relied instead upon subjective experience and interpretation. Their progeny is in the tens of thousands of Protestant denominations, splinter groups, and other independent, non-denominational churches we have today. Another fruit of nominalism and its rejection of universals is one of the great areas of our time, moral relativism, which denies that any moral absolutes exist. It is very silly. It is very, very silly, but there's a lot of Catholics I know, on Twitter especially, which prescribe to this, ironically. Which doesn't even make any sense.